past August, I got the chance to visit Cedar Point for the first time in about 20 years, believe it or not. I can't be 100% sure, but I think my last visit before that would have been sometime in the fall of 99, maybe 2000. Either way, it was a long time ago. But back then, a lot of the rides people travel from all over to line up for didn't even exist yet. Anyway, it was pretty busy the day I went, so I didn't get everything done that I wanted to in the park, but I did snag rides on the big four: Millennium Force, Maverick, Top Thrill Dragster, and Steel Vengeance. And after my very first ride on Maverick, it was, of course, immediately obvious to me that, as I suspected, this ride was better than any one thing at my home park of Kings Island. And truthfully, it's better than a lot of rides anywhere. This is also true of Steel Vengeance. Now, Kings Island has a very good collection of rides, don't get me wrong. I still enjoy the park quite a bit. I feel really lucky to have something like that so close by to me. I know a lot of people have to travel a lot farther to ride stuff that's not even half as good, so don't get confused on that. I love Kings Island, and in general, I think Cedar Fair is doing a pretty good job running the park. In a lot of ways, Kings Island is a much better place than it was back when I was growing up during the Paramount era. We didn't get stuff like Banshee, Diamondback, Mystic Timbers, or Orion when they were running the park, and the one time they did try to build something awesome, well, it didn't really work out. But the more I fall down this rabbit hole of amusement parks and roller coasters, and the more it becomes less of a casual fascination and more of a, it feels weird to say, but kind of a passion. The more I go out to other parks and ride other things, the more I feel that Kings Island has some pretty unfortunate holes in its lineup, and I really think it's in the park's best interest to fix that. Now, all of this is going to seem a bit like a wild tangent here, but I'm going to ask you to trust me, okay? I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. You see, I haven't been tuned into this stuff for all that long. In fact, until a couple of years ago, I hadn't been to any parks or ridden any coasters at all since I think around 2007 or so. I was part of the demographic you'll hear a lot of people say is the only one that really matters, the GP. And I understand why people say that. I take their point. The general public, in other words, the vast majority of the people who go to amusement parks and spend their money, are the most important group a company like Cedar Fair needs to cater to. And not everyone wants to ride the craziest, wildest roller coasters. But I don't agree with the idea that enthusiasts don't matter to a park at all. You might have been able to say that at some point in the past, but this is a different age entirely. Let's take me as an example. I mentioned that this wasn't always a hobby for me, so how did I go from hardly giving theme parks a second thought to now planning out entire vacations just to get to them and doing a YouTube channel and spending hours and hours making videos about them? Here's what happened. A couple of years ago, I had a death in the family. After a long few days of travel for the funeral, I got home and I was feeling pretty down. My wife hadn't been able to get off work, so it was just me and the kids, driving in the car for hours and hours and hours and hours over a couple of days. So my wife, my kids, and I, we went out to eat, and I don't know, maybe I saw an ad somewhere or heard something on the radio, but I just off the cuff suggested getting season passes to Kings Island that day and taking the family. It was early on in the season. This is probably like early May, so the timing seemed good, and we did it. A couple of weeks later, my wife and I got the opportunity to go without our children and check out the bigger rides, many of which didn't exist the last time we were at the park. I think the last time we were there, it was Firehawk was the hot newness. So I had gotten over my fear of roller coasters sometime around 13 or so, but not having been on one in such a long time, some of these rides looked extremely intimidating to me. As someone who was GP much more recently than some of the rest of you, I can say that the gulf between what an enthusiast sees and what your average park goer might see when they look at something like Diamondback or Banshee is wide. We got on Banshee anyway, and I was anxious as all heck going up the lift hill, but the moment the chain disengaged and we went down that drop, my attitude changed instantly. It was different from any ride I had ever taken on a roller coaster. I do not know why, but I was all in, not worried about a thing, and I knew that I liked this a lot and wanted to spend a lot more time doing it. So there are 3 things that I would say made me an enthusiast. One is that there's a major amusement park nearby that I'd been going to my entire childhood and into my late teens and early 20s. 2 is that ride on Banshee, and 3 is the internet and social media. When I got back from having a great time at Kings Island, I did what I think a lot of people do for a lot of things. I looked stuff up online. I found YouTube channels like Coaster Studios and Theme Park Crazy that talked about the rides I've just rode in the park I had just been to. Then I went back and rode the rides more, started forming opinions about them, and what I liked, what I didn't like, and compared them to what other people said online. Over time, I joined forums, subreddits, Facebook groups, and subscribed to more YouTube channels. The community influenced my desires of where to go, what to ride, and are you listening, Cedar Fair? Where to spend my money. In 2017, I had never even heard of Hershey Park. Now, it's one of the places I have planned to travel to. And in fact, I would have gone this year, but we all know how that went. And it's all because of the enthusiast community that exists online and the great world-class thrill rides that park has. Prior to all this, I was vaguely aware of roller coaster enthusiasts, and I had a certain image in my mind of what that meant. Think this guy, but give him a fanny pack and one of those thick athletic straps on those exact same glasses. But this is the age of Instagram and the social media influencer. I still don't particularly like the phrase coaster enthusiast, but similar to the way geek culture has revamped the image that word conjures, coaster enthusiasts are owning and reappropriating that identity as well. It was all a very natural, gradual progression. Social media acts like a kind of funnel down all kinds of rabbit holes. I think it's easier than ever for someone to start out as a member of the general public and end up a coaster enthusiast. Now look, there are some things about my particular story that probably make me an outlier in a lot of ways, but the point I'm trying to make is that these days there are all kinds of opportunities in our current world to take someone from a casual customer to someone who's a bit more fanatical, what people in the sales world might call a referral base. It all started with me as an average Joe, just wanting to blow off some steam and revisit a place from my childhood, and then I was radicalized by Banshee and the roller coaster subreddit and Taylor Bybee. It's contagious too. My wife wasn't all that into this stuff either, and now she's getting off Valraven like mediocre. So, what does any of this have to do with Kings Island? Well, while Kings Island has a pretty solid lineup of coasters, I'd argue that with the exception of Mystic Timbers and maybe Banshee and parts of the Beast, especially that final Helix, which I would say all might be a bit intense for some people, they really don't have as much in the park for a seasoned coaster enthusiast looking for a thrill ride. It all seems pretty great when it's the only park you spend time in, but when you get out there and ride other things like Steel Vengeance or even Accelerator at Knott's Berry Farm, it's one of my favorites, don't judge, you start to realize that some of Kings Island's coasters, by comparison, are what I once heard someone describe on the roller coaster subreddit as hella decent. Okay, so what does Kings Island really need? It's the title of the video, so let's get to it. It's pretty simple. I think Kings Island needs a new top 10 worthy attraction. Maybe something with a lot of ejector that rides low to the ground and whips you around a lot. If you want to be specific about it, I think what Kings Island really needs is something like Maverick. While the best coaster at Cedar Point is probably Steel Vengeance, well, it's definitely Steel Vengeance, but Maverick is the one that really jumped out at me as being the kind of ride Kings Island really needs to build. I absolutely loved this coaster. It was so intense and so fast and whippy. I just don't really think Kings Island has anything quite like that. I understand that Cedar Fair isn't really working with Intamin anymore, and I know those rides are a pain in the butt to maintain and tend to suffer some downtime.
A, B, C. A always B, B, C closing. Always be closing. Always be closing.
But it's still a shame because the fact that Cedar Fair only built one of these throughout the entire chain is a tragedy. Honestly, it's a crime. I'm serious. Someone should go to jail for this. Of course, there's plenty of other options, though. They could build an RMC Raptor. A ground-up RMC Hybrid is probably at or near the top of most Kings Island fans' wish lists. Or something from Intamin other than a Blitz coaster could be cool. Something like Expedition G-Force I'm sure would be epic. It doesn't even have to be some super crazy expensive ride to be the new #1 at the park either. How about one of those Chance Hyper GTX coasters that Kentucky Kingdom built and then no one else did, even though everyone seems to really like Lightning Run? Yeah, I know Kentucky Kingdom is relatively close to Kings Island, but who cares? Okay, make it bigger and taller, keep the whippy layout, people will love it. Look, The sky is the limit here. Unless it's a B&M, please no more B&Ms at Kings Island. I'm not one of the haters, but Kings Island has plenty of them. The point is, Kings Island seems to be really focused on bringing in more of the rides that look intimidating but are actually fairly gentle, crowd-pleasing experiences. Those are important. I probably wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for rides like that, but Kings Island has an excellent supporting cast. Now it really does need its new star attraction. It's Fury 325, or its Steel Vengeance, if you will. Prior to this season, it seemed that Kings Island was content to continue touting the 40-year-old Beast as their main event. But the Beast ride experience is of debatable quality nowadays, in my opinion. It's a shame they didn't take their most recent massive addition as a chance to do this. And while Orion is a good ride, and I'm gonna ride it every time I go to the park, this isn't the wild, intense experience that I think the park really needs now. For the next few seasons at least, Kings Island is going to try to sell Orion as the park's new star attraction. And it does fill the giant giga-sized gap KI had in its lineup, but it ain't no Steel Vengeance. Obviously, no one should expect this to happen anytime soon. Cedar Fair has just spent $30 million building Kings Island's Giga, and now they have to contend with the economic fallout of the coronavirus pandemic. We all get that. If anyone from Cedar Fair corporate sees this, take your time, recover, and when the time is right to replace Vortex, please don't build a wing or dive coaster. Give Kings Island the top 10 worthy star attraction the park deserves. People will still go to Cedar Point, I promise. Besides, I think Cedar Fair may be underestimating the general amusement park going public anyway. People don't travel from all over to go to Cedar Point because they want to ride Valorant. Alright guys, so that was it. My take on what Kings Island really needs. I hope you enjoyed the video. I know it was a little different than the kind of stuff I usually make. If you did enjoy, consider subscribing if you haven't already. And if you think I'm doing a good job here, a like is always appreciated and helps get my channel noticed. Anyway, folks, that all clear means I'm up, and out of here. Keep those hands up, and I will talk to you on the next one.